Have you ever seen a knife design that you just wanted really badly because it was different? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny, and also all things that are currently out of focus. Let's get that in there. There we go. Today, we're talking about this guy, the transforming knife from WE, and I showcased it on a live stream that I did 3 weeks ago. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked out yet, my live streams are 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time every single Wednesday. That's 8 p.m. Mountain, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And I mentioned this knife, and I said, guys, I don't know about this knife. I like it, but I don't know. And everyone said, you know what? We'd like to know a bit more about this knife. So a couple weeks went by, no Typhoeus review. And then I hooked up with my friends over at White Mountain Knives who happen to have these in stock. So if you like it, make sure to check them out because they have it in stock. And I've got a discount code that'll get you an extra 10% off. And I'll make sure that pops up here on the screen. That's RSB10. It's not an affiliate code. I don't get anything when you use it, but you get 10% off. These being around $290 means that you're going to get at least $29 off for using that code. Go bananas. You can use it on other knives on their site as well. Regardless, thank you to White Mountain Knives for making this review possible because despite my best efforts, without you guys, it really wouldn't be. Now, I've got some choice opinions on this knife and some are good, some are not so good. We're just going to have to check it out. Guys, this is the WE Typhoeus. I've had it for a full day now. I just got it out of the box, and I think you might be a little bit surprised. Let's check it out. All right, guys, so here we are, and it's time that we go ahead and talk about this WE Typhoeus. Now, the WE Typhoeus is just, I'm going to say it outright, it's a sweet idea. I love the idea of a knife that transforms, and I know I'm not the only one because this knife oddly came out around the same time as another knife which is also a transforming push dagger, and that knife that I'm referring to is called the Forever Steel Alkaid. I'm not sure how they say it. However, unlike the Alkaid, this one does not fully shut, nor does it lock, which are features that you do get on the Alkaid. Now, I do want to mention that this is more of a first impressions than it is a full review because I haven't lived with this knife long enough to really give it a full review yet. I mean, how do you review a push dagger? I mean, how can I say I've been out there in the world fighting the ninjas? And yeah, I can't. But since it is a transforming knife, you can use it, and this is possibly the form factor that I would be willing to bet that most people would use it in, like this. I mentioned in my intro that I like some things and I don't like other things. So the first thing that we need to talk about is this knife was unveiled at Blade Show 2022. Love Them Knives checked out the WE table, and they had this there as a prototype. They said it's not ready for production yet. We're looking to get it ready and hopefully it'll hit the market running. We're really excited about this design, yada yada. You know, typical stuff that a knife company is going to say about an upcoming knife. That being said, they didn't change anything about it from the point in which it was a prototype to this point. So I've got some suggestions to make, and these are just suggestions that I have after having it in my possession for roughly about a day. Before I do that, let's talk about what I do like. This blue finish is beautiful. It's a blue stonewash finish, and WE Knives has been doing this blue stonewash finish on a lot of different knives recently. Their newer models almost always come with this as an option, which I think is really, really sweet. The blue hardware is absolutely bananas. I love it. It's shiny, it adds to the aesthetic, it looks premium, and when you're looking at a knife that's close to the $300 price tag, you want the aesthetics, you need the aesthetics to actually be good. Now, I've been flicking this about, but I'll show you how this mechanism works. This is position 1. This is your regular knife position. There is no knife lock. With a little bit of force, if you hold it from down here, you can, of course, get it to flip down. The action is running on a couple different pivots internally, and those pivots are running on washers, not bearings. Now, washers do take a tiny little bit of fidgeting around with to actually get worn in, but once they do, they feel really smooth. There's no grittiness, there's no grindiness. Would I have preferred that those were on ceramic bearings? Maybe. But the benefit of washers internally is that washers leave very little space for dirt and grime to get in there and mess with the action. And when you have not one but 2 pivots and 2 moving pieces, at least 2 moving pieces, I can see why the washers would be important. So I digress. Would I have preferred ceramic bearings? Yes, but as far as, use case scenario is concerned, I can also see why they went with washers. That action is very smooth once it breaks in. It takes about, I would say, 20 minutes of doing this to get it to break in. Now, this action is very addictive. It's also really easy to screw up. If you hold it from up here, you can do it, but your hand's going to get in the way a decent amount of the time. So you actually want to hold it down here, and they do kind of suggest that with these they're almost texturized cutouts. So right here, your finger is not getting in the way. And if you're like me and you like to fidget, that's great. On this main pivot right here, you have the WE Knife Company logo, which I think looks good. It's kind of this bronze polished against the black. On the back side, you can tell that it's a single-sided pivot, one of 2 or possibly 3. All of this hardware looks to be T8, which is good. If you ever decide that you need to take this apart for some reason, it would be nice to not have to switch bits. So that's cool. Overall, I think that in this format, this knife looks great. I really like this Tanto-esque blade shape. This appears to be 2 hollow grinds, and it's only ever so slightly a Tanto. I honestly think that they probably could have gotten away with not having it as a Tanto at all. You do have a swedge here up at the top, and then what is an absurdly short blade, which makes sense once you have it in push dagger configuration. Now, I'm not a push dagger guy. I've never owned a push dagger before, but I would imagine that you don't necessarily need it to be super long. It's just supposed to be an extension of your fist, self-defense situation, so on and so forth. And yeah, the action on here is so good. And once it breaks in, and like I said, it takes about 20 minutes of doing this, and those washers are polished and they're nice. Right out of the box, it is a little bit stiff, but without any changing of the pivot screws or anything like that, just doing this, all of a sudden it's buttery smooth. It reminds me of the action that I get on the washers on my Strider. Now, this is not a big knife. It does look a little bit bigger than it is in when you look at the pictures. But as I'm sure many ladies can attest to, sometimes things are not always as big as they look in the pictures. For example, this is my Best Techman Ronin, and it dwarfs that knife. This is not a huge knife. How about up against another knife that people have a lot of? Let's do the Spyderco Manix 2. Manix 2 dwarfs that knife. So if you like bigger knives, this is not necessarily a knife for you. However, it is extremely versatile because you can flip it back and forth between a push dagger and also like this. Because they have this gigantic finger cutout for your index finger, despite the fact that this is a small knife, it's actually really easy to get a full 4-finger grip. Now, there is no knife locking mechanism in here, which means that your hand is the lock. I don't suggest moving your thumb up to the spine here because any pressure, and you'll start to feel that blade give way. No problem. Line your thumb up with the index finger and it's locked in there really solid. Now, because your hand is the lock, it is going to have a tiny bit of blade play, but it's nothing to be super concerned about, in my opinion, because whenever you're cutting something, you're pushing towards the spine. So you're pushing towards the spine, and that's going to keep that in place. For regular EDC tasks, this is going to do absolutely fine for things like cutting open boxes, cutting loose threads, opening bags, you know, typical non-hardcore EDC tasks. This will do the job whether it locks or not. As far as whether it should have a lock, this is where we're going to start talking about our suggestions to WE Knife Company. Suggestion number 1, it needs a knife lock. Specifically, it needs a button lock. This would solve a couple problems. First and foremost, button locks are extremely popular right now, and that would actually be something that would attract a decent amount of people. 2, it would actually make it more of a solid interface, which is going to give people more confidence when they do use it in EDC format, which is going to be their primary use case scenario. I don't know a single person on the face of this planet that is going to use this knife primarily in this format. I digress. It needs a lock. I would prefer a button lock, and I'm going to show you something. It should be right there at this corner. And the reason why is because when you actuate this knife, your hand needs to be there anyways. This is a spot that always has contact with the other side of the handle scale. So, for example, if you put it right there, it could be locked right here. Drill a hole, put a spring in there, and then a plunge. That plunge will disengage when pressed, meaning that you can go from here to here, no problem. Back to here, no problem. And when it's released, it locks it in place. Does it have to be the most sturdy lock in the world? No, absolutely not, because your hand is going to be holding it and it's going to provide that extra bit of locking. So it actually wouldn't need to be super duper, you know, tough as far as knife locks are concerned. Remember, you were okay with it without a knife lock at all. So having a little bit of locking right there would actually do it a lot of justice. Second, we need some jimping. We need some jimping here from the handle scales to the apex of this spine. Because this is such a small knife, that's where your thumb's going to rest naturally. It's where it's going to rest naturally. Now, you definitely need the lock in there, but after you do that, having that jimping there would be really, really good because it's going to be perfect for those EDC tasks. Aside from those two things, I would like to see ceramic bearings on here, and I would like to see ceramic bearings because it would make this a whole lot snappier, more fidget friendly. And if there's anything that anybody knows about the knife community, it's that the majority of us actually do like having fidget friendly knives. It's not that the washers aren't fidget friendly to begin with, it's just that I do think ceramic bearings would be better. That's just my personal opinion. That's one where I think you'd be fine leaving it as washers for a long-term statement because, again, those washers are going to make sure that not a whole lot of dirt and grime gets in that action. So if they didn't change that, I'd be okay with it. I have a feeling that the reason why this was released in its prototype form to the public is because WE Knife Company wanted to see what the public's response was. They wanted to see, is it worth the extra R&D? Because this is not just a pocket knife. In fact, it's not a pocket knife at all. That's why it has a sheath, but it is a folding knife. And I don't know if they really knew the right direction to go on with this knife. The blade shape is cool. The handle scales look cool. This blue titanium stonewashed handle scale is gorgeous with the blue hardware. Man, I'm going nuts over here. I absolutely love the aesthetic of this knife, and I think that it could be a great backup knife, especially for those who like to carry knives as a defensive option. I don't, but if you do, I'm not going to judge you for that. All in all, I think it's a really cool knife. It's very fidget friendly. They use premium materials. This is a 20 CV blade with titanium handle scales. The hardware matching, I mean, I really love the look of this. There's a reason why I kept checking this out on White Mountain Knives. But you let me know. What do you think of this design? I think that it's beautiful. I'm interested in your opinions though. How is it going to rank on Grail or Garbage, our leaderboard? I have no idea. We're going to have to check it out for another 7 to 10 days, and then we will decide. Guys, that's all I got for you today, but you let me know. Are you interested in a knife like this? Is the design too crazy? Is it too Mall Ninja-esque? I'm interested. Let me know in the comments section down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. And if you want to see the ranking that happens in the next 7 to 10 days, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.